Hi there. Welcome to this basic tutorial of how to do digital painting. For this program, I will be using Clip Studio Paint, and this comes with the Wacom Cintiq devices. So I had always used a different program before, but this is something I would like to try out since it came with the tablet. And everything's in Japanese, so I can't really understand everything yet. But I played around with it, and mostly I kind of figured out a few things. And I will show you the basics of how to use it so that you can make a nice digital artwork with it. Okay, you can begin. So, this is the screen that you get when you open the program. You'll get your nice drawing page, and you have a bunch of stuff here that if you are new to digital painting or you're not used to making any sort of artwork on the computer, this might look very overwhelming for you, but don't be afraid. It gets easier once you start understanding everything. Let me start first with all of the menu items over here, because I feel like some people would see this and they'd get overwhelmed with it. First of all, you have your toolbar right here on this side, and you can see a lot of many different icons. You don't have to worry so much about it for now. If your only goal is to draw and paint, then you only really have to pay attention to some of them. So first, let me show you what I have selected here. This is the pencil tool. So now if you look here, pencil, and you can see some sub menus here that connects to that tool. So let me start first by showing you this one, and I can't read it, but I'm guessing this is the regular pencil. Let me select the black color for now, using the color selector down at the lower left corner. And you will see that it works just like a regular pencil. So if you're using your tablet, you can basically just sketch with it, draw with it. And then this one, I guess it's more like a mechanical pencil. It has a more straight line, I guess. Over here at the top of the color selector, you can choose the size of the brushes. So if you want to try a thicker brush, then you can basically make a very thick line. But I guess the bigger your brush is, the less condensed it is, and it becomes kind of like a shading rather than a stroke. Yeah, there you go. So that is what a pencil tool does. Normally, I mostly just use brush because it's basically the same thing when you're doing digital art. But if you want that kind of pencil-y look, this would be a great choice for drawing. We'll get back on that later. And then over here, these are more like pastel chalk. So you can try and experiment, try different things. What do they look like if you use them? You can even try and see if you use a different color, what that can look. It's like coloring with crayons, this one. So always check when you change your tool, check the sub menus here. These are, the top part shows you different types. This middle bit here is more of a control. I don't want to mess with it right now because I can't read anything yet, and I feel like just using the defaults is better for now. And this down here, you can change brush sizes. So you can tell your brush sizes by looking at how big this circle is. Like if right now I'm on 17, but if I choose 250, you'll see that the brush size changes. and it makes a bigger stroke. Okay. One thing I would like to add is the the brush is very sensitive to pressure. So if you're pressing harder, it would make a much darker or a much bigger stroke, and if you press really light, it becomes smaller than the actual brush size. So just think about it when you're using your pen. Okay. Now, because I made a mess right now, let me show you a nice little trick. This top part over here, where you see that kind of a ring with lines on it, that clears everything out. So if you're just experimenting, that can be something that will be helpful to you. Okay, now I'm going to try to show you what the pencil tool can be good for by making a quick sketch. But first, I'm going to talk about layers. Now, you might or might not be familiar with layers yet, but basically layers are it's something that you can use in digital art, which you probably won't find when you're using just regular paper. But basically, when you open Clip Studio Paint, you will get this this white layer and one on top that just says layer, and you will see these kind of gray and white checkers. That just means it's transparent, nothing is on it. Now you can think about this white layer as your paper, and this thing on top is whatever you're going to put on top of it. Now, when you're making a digital artwork, especially if you're a beginner, I would suggest putting layers every time you're doing something new. So that's how I'm going to teach it. Normally, when I paint, I end up with 5 or 6, even 10, up to 10 layers sometimes, depending on how complicated my picture is. So for now, we're just going to use this layer. If you want, you can rename this, and for me it's easier because I always see what's on my layers, and I'm just going to double click on that, and you can actually type the name of what you want it to be. So I am just going to put sketch. Oh yeah, so now as you can see, layer is now called sketch, and I'm going to choose black and use this pencil as my tool of choice for now. I'm using number 10 size just to make it really clear. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sketch out what I want to do. So good thing about sketching is I try not to be very clear about it because I'm still trying to get my ideas. I switched to gray to make it a little bit lighter, but basically I'm going to want some sort of insect here, like maybe I don't know, a dragonfly with its tail going like this, and yeah, its wings. As you can see, I'm being very rough with it. And then over here, I'm going to draw big frog trying to catch that dragonfly. So for the sake of this tutorial, I'm going to keep it simple. But you know, as you make your own drawings, you can go more and more complicated as you learn the program. Then the frog jumped, so its arm is actually going to be kind of like spread out this way. Then its other hand would be here. and the line just goes off the page because it's too close. And yeah, I would say that's a pretty good start. And then the background would be like just blurred, maybe like leaves and nature and that sort of thing. Okay, so now as you can see, the sketch is very basic. Now if you want to develop this more at this stage, you are really free to do so. For the sake of simplicity, I will keep it like this. Now this is where the multiple layers come in. So over here at the layers area, you will see a very kind of a square with a plus icon. This will let you add more layers, like that one. And again, I'm going to double click on the word layer or Rhea, and I will rename it to line art, just to make it less confusing. Now the way layers work is they don't affect each other. So whatever I write on the sketch layer doesn't get written on the paper or the line art layer. So to show you an example, if I'm on the line art layer right now and I make this drawing, I can hide the line art layer by pressing the icon, and you can see that the sketch layer is unaffected. So all the layers are independent of each other. Okay, now that I made a mess of the line art layer, I can erase it using the eraser tool over here at the side. You can also just flip your pen and use this back part here as the eraser. But another way you can do it is, if you make a mess of the layers, is you can just press this little trash can at the side or drag the layer to that trash can and it will delete that layer. That's how you get rid of them. So because I deleted my line art layer, I'm going to start again and make another line art layer. Okay, now that my line art layer is back, I am going to now switch from pencil to the brush tools, because really I prefer the brushes. And as you can see, the brushes also has a lot of different settings over here at the top. For this time, I'm going to choose this middle option and the first one at the top. I feel like this is going to be your basic painting brush. It has a very good kind of pressure, it has nice color output, and it's very versatile, I guess. Right, so using that brush, I am going to reduce my size. Maybe I'll just go 3 for my brush size, and I'm going to choose black or a dark gray that's really close to black. Now I can start properly drawing this. So this time I'm going to start with a frog. Well, it's not really showing right now, so maybe I'll use a bigger brush then. Maybe number 20? 20 is too big. 15. There you go. So this is a number 15 brush, and just taking my time trying to make my drawing. If you make a mistake, you can always press Ctrl Z, or you can press this button up here, which would take you back one step from what you last did. So right now, I am being more careful than I was earlier when I was just sketching, because this is the proper line art. Although normally I wouldn't use line art anymore, I would just paint. But if you're comfortable with making a drawing first before you paint anything, this is a good practice for digital painting. Okay, so just making these little adjustments here and there to make my picture. So now I'm drawing his eyes. It's having this really intense look at the dragonfly, and just making the picture more alive, I guess. You have its toes with all these kind of padded fingertips. Okay, and then it goes down like that. Try to draw these closer ones. Now, the closer something is, it's a good idea to put more detail on it. So, trying to show these details on its webbed toes. And then finish off with its body like this. And now, I want to make this tongue looks like it's sticking to the dragonfly. So I'm just going to kind of make this shape, and then I will draw the dragonfly like this. Don't know what a dragonfly's face looks like, so I'm just going to make it up since it's a cartoon anyway. And then I guess it has a compound eye, so, but it has pseudo pupils like this. Want to make it look as silly as possible. Alright, and then let's give the dragonfly some legs. So again, when you're making your drawing, it doesn't really have to be this way, like you're making a sketch and then a line art. Like for me, I just normally paint right away. But if you're a beginner, this is how I learned. I made sketches and line art and then painted on top of it. But as you learn more how to use the program, you can think about just painting right away. But this is a good way to learn it. Then draw the wings. And the other wing will be here at the back. Alright, so now that we have a line art to work with, so this is basically your drawing. You can think about this as maybe the sketch is when you draw with a pencil, and then the line art is you tracing it with a pen or a marker before putting color to it. Now you can keep the line art and the sketch together before when you paint. Normally I would hide the sketch layer, so you'll have a nicer, cleaner looking artwork when you start your painting. And then after that, you can add the paint or the color layer, and then start that. So when you're happy with your line art, I would say this is a good time to start saving. And if you have no idea how to save your work, it's just Control S, or you can press this little icon on top that has the downward arrow. Okay, so you will get this window when you press that button or you press Control S. And what you need to do is just name your file. To whatever you want to name that drawing. And then you will have it saved. Now that we are ready to paint our picture with the drawing that we made earlier, what I'm going to do is I will start by adding another layer, and we'll call that layer color. So now I am ready to paint. As you can see, I have hidden my sketch layer by removing that icon, and now I have my line art and my color layer. The color layer is on top of the line art right now. So for example, if I choose a color here, like color green, and I make a line on the color layer, the color goes on top of the line. You can change that by dragging layers. So if you want your line art to be perfectly visible, I would say, then you can put your color layer under the line art, and what would happen is whatever you put under the line art, your color layer will still be your whatever you put on the color layer, the line art layer would still be there. So it's up to you how you want to do it, but me, I prefer my color to be on top because I don't normally use lines anyway. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to start by choosing my brush, and I'm still going to use this first one here on top. Again, I have the brush here, the middle option here on top, and this first one. Now, choosing brush sizes, you can normally just click through here and pick a size. Like this one might be too small for covering a lot of areas. So right now this is 15. So you can just estimate, okay, 15 is too small. What if you double it to 30? That might be a good size. You want it even bigger, go 50, or you know, whatever works for you. So I'm just going to start by basically just coloring, or rather just putting colors on where I want this color to be. And as you can see, this is kind of a slow or a fast process depending on how fast you work or how careful you are. Or when I'm painting, I tend to be, I would say, I'm a little less careful when I'm painting with digital art compared to when I'm using watercolors or acrylic paints on paper or canvas. But in digital art, one of the things I really like about it is you can afford to be careless because there's no wasted material. You know, you can always erase things. Nothing gets too dry or too late to fix in the end. And when you make a mistake, you can always press undo right here. So digital art is really nice, especially when you're more used to it and you're not guessing what everything does anymore. And also, once you learn to use a digital art program, you can basically learn everything else. Like for example, me, I normally use Adobe Photoshop because that's the first program I learned to draw on when I was younger. But after learning that, I was able to explore other apps like Medibank Paint Pro, Corel Paint, and now this Clip Studio, because they mostly work the same way with a few changes here and there. Like I think Clip Studio Paint, this one, has a lot of options for brushes. The Photoshop, which I use most of the time, I don't think it has this many choices, but I've learned to make my own brushes for that program. So yeah, I'm talking too much. Let's focus on the painting. So as you can see, I just started with making one color for the whole frog, and you know, you don't have to paint like this. Sometimes I would paint like this, sometimes I won't, but just for the sake of simplicity, I'm just showing you how to start a painting. And I think once I finish this frog, I'm just going to go into time lapse and finish the painting in that mode, so you can see the final product without having to watch me paint for hours. Okay, so now that I have a base color for the frog, I have more of an idea of what I want it to look like. One thing you can do also is you can remove the line art layer from time to time and just see what your painting looks like, you know, before you move on. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to choose different colors to show the painting. If you have your line art on top, you can see the lines more clearly. So that's something you might consider, but I like painting with the color on top of the line art because eventually I'm going to cover everything anyway. To give you an example of what I mean by that is, okay, right now I have my green frog over here, and using the color selector at the bottom, I'm going to move this slider on the circle towards the blue and move this circle inside the square down, so that would give me, you know, a darker color to work with. And now I can make shadows on my painting to have that sort of a more 3D effect. So again, just to remind you, the brushes, the lighter you press on it, the lighter it would also make the brush stroke. So you can think about that when you're doing some shading and highlights, because it just helps you, you know, blend the colors much easier. So yeah, just as you can see, I'm just taking my time trying to put some details together. I'm thinking of, okay, where I want to put the shadows and where I think the light would be hitting. you keep going like this, eventually you'll see that the painting is slowly taking shape. Oh, I want to talk about this for now. As you can see, how I'm changing my brush into this eyedropper tool. It's this one over here. And what this does is it helps you pick colors that you previously used. So for example, you can see my color here, it's in the dark area. But if I use this tool and click it on the lighter green, it changes. So this helps you to pick out colors without having to remember everything that you used. You just go back to it and it will give you the color that you need. But it can be a hassle going to your toolbar all the time. So what I'm actually doing is I'm just pressing Alt, and as you can see, it changes. So you can also do that to change colors every now and then. Okay, well, I lost my line here, so I'm just going to kind of refresh it using this. Oops, that was a mistake. Okay, so now I'm kind of happy with how this color looks. Again, just taking your time, making sure that you're getting the color that you want. So if you're starting to do a basic painting, you can go with flat colors if that's how you normally do it. But for me, I like having at least one middle color, a dark color, and then a light color. As you can see here, so my middle color is this green that we first used. Putting the dark color of the frog in the shadows. And then you can add highlights, which is the brighter color. For that, I would use a more yellowy kind of green. Still using the same brush, and now it's the highlight or the light color would be opposites of where the shadow is. And just do your best to make that position clear, like highlights, middle color, and the shadows, or midtones and shadows. You'll have a nice kind of 3D effect for it. And again, you don't have to paint like this, but just for the sake of how I teach, this is normally how I recommend students do it. Just because it gives that sort of 3D look, which I think looks nice. And even if you're a beginner digital artist, I feel like it's a good way to start. And also when you have the middle tones, the highlights, and the shadows, it makes your painting or your drawing really clear and easy to understand. For example, this frog's hand over here. The light is coming from this way. So I'm just making all the highlights in that area. Okay, so you can see how the painting is taking shape now. And if I remove the line art, you'll actually see that even without the lines, you can see where the shadows and the highlights are. And that's the reason why I always have these shadows, because it just makes the painting more clear. Okay. Before I finish up the painting, I'm going to talk about all these other options down here, because of course I encourage you to experiment and use what you can, but I'll let you try those in your own time. If I show you everything, this tutorial video is going to be too long. So just to talk about a few things, this one, it's going to be the fourth option. I like it because it has a very different brush stroke than the one we were using before. Like this one that we used before is round. I mean, if you press it, it's just a circle. But this one, it has a kind of this messy shape. So the brush stroke that it makes is also kind of messy, but I like it for adding a little bit of texture. So this green, now I'm going to add another darker color and just use this to emphasize those little dark areas. But it doesn't blend as nicely as the round brush, so I guess you'll have to choose what you want for a certain time before picking out what you're using. And then the other one I wanted to show is something that you can use with this one, which is this very last brush. Now this one doesn't really produce any, oh, I guess it does. Yeah, it's a soft brush and you can use it to blend colors, but you have to be careful because it can easily destroy your work if you're not careful with it. But yeah, as you can see, it just kind of blends the colors together. So if you're trying to make your painting a little bit more smooth, this can be a good choice for that. But be careful not to overdo it, because if you blend too much, it just looks terrible. But if you're trying to smoothen out gradients like what I'm doing right now, it's very, very useful. So for example, this one, it looks too rough. You can smoothen it out and it just blends it perfectly like this. So yeah, you can just try and see what works. If you overblend like this one right here, if I remove the line, you can see that the chin almost disappeared completely. So what you can do is just go back to your original brush and pick that color. You can always make it clear again. Yeah. Okay. Some of these brushes are good for like textures, like that. Some of them have kind of like they look like actual paint. This one has a weird shape, and it might be tempting to use this all the time, but I would say use it in moderation. Just try to do it little by little. You can also try the other options. Now, this last one here, they kind of look like watercolors. I haven't really explored on how to use them yet, but like I said, they all have their own uses. Just have to try them. Over here at the first option, I found a brush that I would like to use for making kind of plants, kind of like just plants in the background. I feel like that would work out nicely. Yeah, so I'm going to try and finish this painting, and hopefully you will learn. And if you want to try this exact same one, you can just follow along, but I can't make a video for the whole painting because it'd be too long. At the end, I will show you how to save your work, but for now, I'm going to work on this, and I will see you when it's done. And there you go. This is the finished painting. Now, I'd say this is quite funny. I like how it turned out. I didn't really think about the colors I would use at the start, but for the sake of just trying out the app, the program, I think it turned out quite okay. The brushes, I didn't really get to explore a lot of them, but mostly I just used this one basic brush here at the top that I was explaining from the start earlier. I would add a few things that I didn't get to talk about earlier. For the dragonfly's wings, I added another layer just so I can easily draw it behind the dragonfly but on top of the background. That's why it's in between these two layers down here. And you may have noticed that I made something without using a brush. So this is actually what I use, the lasso tool. If you click that icon, you'll see all these different selecting tools, and what this does is when you make a shape, you can only draw inside that shape. So if I try to draw a line from the top here going down the bottom, as you can see, it only had written inside this shape. So that's how it works, just so yeah, you might want to use it as well. Yeah, so what else did I use? Oh yeah, so this here, you have the pencil, the brush, and over here you have some sort of a spray. So I used a lot of this kind of soft color, I guess, airbrush. You have stuff like these things that you might want to try as well, but I'll let you experiment with that by yourself. And then down here you have things that are kind of lines or decorations that you can also explore. Some of them are pretty fun, like I found something before that I thought I can use, but I just didn't want to do it right now. But you can use things like these to add to your painting too. Don't know how useful it will be, but yeah. So now when you finish your artwork, always make sure to press Ctrl S or this icon up here to save it. Now that would only save it as a Clip Studio Paint file, but if you want to post this picture online or share it to your friends or maybe even email it to me, the best way to save it is by pressing Ctrl Shift and then S, and that will bring up the save window again. Yeah, so it will bring up the save window like this, and what you want to do is click on this save as type, click down on it, and you can choose either JPEG or PNG. I think PNGs are better, but when you do that, you will have your saved image. And that's it. When you get your file, you can start over and you will have your finished drawing. So I hope you learned a little bit about digital painting from this tutorial. It's a bit long, but I feel like once you get the basics down, you will be able to have a lot of freedom with painting, and you can experiment more freely. So I hope you can make a painting soon, and I would love to see them. Have fun. Bye.